Imagine walking into a room where nobody knows your name. Within minutes, people are listening to you more carefully than they listen to everyone else. They begin revealing information they never intended to share. They adjust their behavior around you without realizing why. They assume you understand far more than you actually do. This isn't magic. It isn't manipulation through force. It is the result of understanding one uncomfortable truth. Most people operate on automatic patterns. They repeat habits, emotional reactions, and predictable behaviors every single day. Once you learn to recognize those patterns, influence becomes less about controlling people and more about anticipating them. Today, we're going to explore 5 powerful rules that help you think several moves ahead of almost anyone you meet. Not because you're smarter, not because you're stronger, but because you refuse to play the same game everyone else is playing. Let's begin Rule 1. Observe pops before you participate most into a conversation with one goal in mind: to be noticed. They want to sound intelligent, interesting, confident, or impressive. They begin talking before they have gathered enough information to understand the environment they have stepped into. In doing so, they unknowingly surrender one of the greatest advantages they could ever possess. The person who speaks first often reveals the most. The person who watches first learns the most. Silent observation is not the absence of action, it is the highest form of preparation. Before you attempt to influence anyone, you must first understand them, because every person is broadcasting far more information than they realize. Human beings are remarkably predictable when you stop focusing only on what they say and begin paying attention to how they behave. Their posture changes when they feel threatened. Their voice rises when they become emotional. Their pace of speech speeds up when they are anxious and slows when they are comfortable. Their eyes move in subtle ways when they search for memories, imagine possibilities, or avoid uncomfortable truths. None of these behaviors guarantee what a person is thinking, but together they form patterns, and patterns are what truly matter. One isolated action tells you very little. A repeated behavior tells you everything. Most people never notice these patterns because they are too busy waiting for their turn to speak. While someone else is talking, they are mentally preparing their next sentence instead of genuinely observing. This creates an enormous opportunity for anyone willing to slow down. Every conversation becomes a source of intelligence. Every interaction becomes a lesson in human nature. Instead of asking, "What should I say next?" begin asking, "What are they showing me that they don't realize they're showing?" That single shift in attention transforms the way you see people forever. Pay close attention to what people repeat. Repetition reveals importance. If someone constantly brings up respect, recognition, loyalty, success, or fairness, those subjects are closely connected to their identity. People naturally circle around what matters most to them. They often disguise it as casual conversation, but beneath the surface, they are revealing their deepest motivations. Someone who repeatedly complains about being overlooked is often seeking validation. Someone who frequently talks about betrayal may still be carrying unresolved disappointment. Someone who constantly emphasizes strength may secretly fear appearing weak. These hidden motivations shape nearly every decision they make. Silence has a unique psychological effect because most people are uncomfortable with it. The moment a pause appears in a conversation, they feel pressure to fill the empty space. They begin explaining themselves more than necessary. They reveal additional details they never planned to share. They justify their opinions, clarify their emotions, and expose pieces of their thinking that would have remained hidden if someone had rushed to speak. By resisting the urge to interrupt or immediately respond, you encourage others to continue talking. The longer they speak, the more complete the picture becomes. Observation also means studying emotional reactions instead of isolated words. Words can be rehearsed. Emotions rarely are. Notice when someone's expression changes unexpectedly. Watch for the brief hesitation before answering a sensitive question. Listen for sudden shifts in tone when a particular topic appears. These moments often reveal where emotion overrides logic. Every strong emotional response points towards something personally significant. You don't need to challenge it or expose it. Simply recognize it as valuable information about what influences that person's decisions. Another overlooked skill is observing how people behave around different individuals. A person may appear confident among friends, but become quiet around authority figures. Someone may act generous in public, but impatient in private. Human behavior changes with context, and those changes reveal priorities, insecurities, and ambitions. Rather than judging these differences, simply notice them. Consistent observation over time always produces a clearer understanding than a single dramatic moment. Your own behavior matters just as much as your ability to observe others. The quieter you become, the less information you accidentally reveal about yourself. You don't need to announce every opinion, defend every belief, or react to every statement. Mystery naturally grows around people who speak with intention instead of impulse. Others begin wondering what you're thinking because you haven't made every thought immediately available. This encourages them to pay closer attention to you while you continue paying close attention to them. Patience is what separates ordinary observers from exceptional ones. Most people expect immediate answers and instant conclusions, but human behavior unfolds gradually. The first impression is only the beginning. Every conversation adds another piece to the puzzle. Every meeting confirms or challenges what you believed before. Over time, these observations accumulate into a remarkably accurate understanding of how someone thinks, what they value, what they fear, and how they are likely to respond under pressure. The greatest advantage rarely belongs to the loudest voice or the fastest thinker. It belongs to the individual who notices what everyone else overlooks while revealing almost nothing in return. Rule 2. Control the emotional temperature. The greatest battles you will ever face are rarely fought with other people. They are fought within yourself, in the few seconds between what happens to you and how you choose to respond. Most individuals believe they are making rational decisions, but in reality, they are reacting emotionally and using logic afterward to justify those reactions. This is why emotional control is one of the most powerful advantages you can develop. It allows you to remain clear while others become clouded. It keeps you focused while others lose perspective. When you learn to control your emotions before attempting to influence any situation, you immediately place yourself in a stronger psychological position. Every day, people unknowingly hand control of their emotions to strangers. A rude comment ruins their morning. A delayed message creates anxiety. A dismissive look damages their confidence. A compliment inflates their ego. Their emotional state constantly changes based on what other people do. This means their decisions are no longer truly their own. They are being guided by external triggers instead of internal discipline. The moment someone else can predict your emotional reactions, they also gain the ability to influence your behavior. Real strength begins when your emotions stop being controlled by the environment around you. Imagine two people receiving the exact same criticism. One immediately becomes defensive, raises their voice, and tries to prove themselves right. The other pauses, remains calm, and quietly asks for clarification. The criticism itself was identical, yet the outcomes are completely different because the responses were different. Most people focus on the event. Strategic thinkers focus on the response. You cannot always choose what happens to you, but you always have the opportunity to decide how much power you allow it to have over your mind. Emotional control does not mean pretending you never feel anger, disappointment, fear, or frustration. Those emotions are part of being human. The difference is that disciplined people refuse to let those emotions become the decision maker. They allow themselves to experience feelings without immediately acting on them. That brief pause between feeling and action is where intelligence begins. It creates enough space for reason to return before emotion takes over. While others rush into arguments, impulsive decisions, or unnecessary conflicts, the emotionally disciplined person quietly evaluates what is actually happening beneath the surface. One of the most effective habits you can develop is learning to separate facts from emotional interpretation. Someone ignoring your message is a fact. Assuming they dislike you is an interpretation. Someone disagreeing with your opinion is a fact. Believing they are attacking your worth is an interpretation. The human mind constantly creates stories to explain events, and those stories are often driven by emotion rather than evidence. By questioning your first interpretation instead of automatically believing it, you reduce unnecessary emotional reactions and begin seeing situations more objectively. People also reveal a great deal about themselves through the emotions they cannot control. Some become impatient the moment things don't go their way. Others become defensive whenever they receive feedback. Some seek constant approval because they fear rejection, while others become aggressive because they mistake dominance for confidence. If you remain emotionally steady while observing these reactions, you gain valuable insight into what motivates them. Their emotions become information instead of obstacles. You begin recognizing which situations trigger insecurity, pride, fear, or frustration, allowing you to understand people more accurately than their words ever could. Another overlooked aspect of emotional control is the influence it has on everyone around you. Emotions are contagious. Panic spreads quickly. Anger spreads quickly. Anxiety spreads quickly. Calmness spreads just as effectively. When one person remains composed during pressure, others unconsciously begin adjusting their own behavior to match that stability. They speak more carefully, think more clearly, and feel less overwhelmed. This is one reason calm individuals are often viewed as natural leaders. Their emotional consistency creates a sense of certainty in uncertain situations. People instinctively trust those who appear capable of handling pressure without losing control. Many people believe confidence comes from speaking loudly or acting fearlessly. In reality, confidence often appears in much quieter forms. It is the ability to remain composed when challenged. It is refusing to chase approval after being ignored. It is maintaining your standards without becoming defensive. It is listening carefully instead of interrupting. It is choosing thoughtful responses instead of emotional reactions. These behaviors communicate inner strength because they demonstrate that your emotional state is not dependent on someone else's approval or behavior. The most dangerous decisions are usually made during emotional extremes. Excitement encourages overconfidence. Anger encourages recklessness. Fear encourages avoidance. Desperation encourages poor judgment. By recognizing these emotional states before acting, you protect yourself from choices you may later regret. The goal is not to eliminate emotion, but to prevent temporary feelings from creating permanent consequences. When your emotions become something you observe, rather than something that controls you, your thinking becomes clearer, your judgment becomes sharper, and your presence becomes far more difficult for anyone else to influence. Rule 3. Make people reveal themselves. Most people spend their time trying to convince others to reveal the truth through direct questions, pressure, or confrontation. Ironically, these methods usually produce the opposite result. The moment people feel examined, they become cautious. They begin choosing their words more carefully. They hide their intentions, soften their opinions, and protect their vulnerabilities. Human beings naturally resist feeling exposed. If your goal is to understand someone, forcing information out of them is rarely effective. The more powerful approach is creating an environment where they willingly reveal themselves without realizing how much they are sharing. The secret lies in understanding one simple principle. People love talking about themselves. They enjoy explaining their experiences, defending their beliefs, and sharing their perspectives. Most conversations are filled with individuals waiting for their turn to speak rather than genuinely listening. This creates a unique opportunity. When you become the rare person who listens with genuine curiosity instead of constantly redirecting attention back to yourself, people begin speaking far more openly. They lower their defenses because they feel understood rather than judged. In that relaxed state, they often reveal their motivations, fears, ambitions, and insecurities without being asked directly. One of the most effective ways to encourage someone to reveal themselves is through carefully placed silence. Silence creates psychological pressure that many people struggle to tolerate. The moment a conversation pauses, most individuals instinctively try to fill the empty space. They add details they had no intention of mentioning. They clarify statements that didn't require clarification. They continue explaining because they assume the silence means more information is expected. By simply resisting the urge to interrupt, you allow the other person to continue uncovering parts of themselves that would have remained hidden if you had spoken too quickly. Another powerful technique is asking open-ended questions instead of questions that can be answered with a simple yes or no. Instead of asking, "Did you enjoy your job?" ask, "What was your favorite part about working there?" Instead of asking, "Are you confident about this decision?" ask, "What led you to make that choice?" Questions like these invite stories rather than short answers. Stories contain emotions, values, priorities, and personal patterns. They reveal far more than isolated facts because people naturally expose how they think while explaining their experiences. Pay close attention to what people repeatedly mention. Repetition is rarely accidental. If someone constantly returns to the topic of loyalty, they probably value it deeply or feel they have been betrayed in the past. If someone repeatedly discusses money, status, or recognition, those subjects likely play an important role in their identity. If they frequently complain about unfair treatment, they may carry unresolved resentment. The words people repeat become clues to the beliefs that quietly influence their decisions. They often tell you exactly what matters most without realizing they are doing so. Weaknesses are not always dramatic flaws. More often, they are predictable emotional patterns. One person cannot handle criticism without becoming defensive. Another constantly seeks validation before making decisions. Someone else avoids confrontation at all costs, even when it damages their interests. These patterns become visible when you stop focusing on isolated moments and begin observing consistency over time. Every repeated emotional reaction points toward an underlying vulnerability. The goal is not to exploit these weaknesses, but to understand how they shape behavior. People also reveal themselves through what they avoid discussing. Notice which questions receive unusually short answers. Observe which subjects suddenly change the tone of the conversation. Watch for nervous laughter, hesitation, or quick attempts to redirect attention elsewhere. These moments often indicate areas where strong emotions exist beneath the surface. You do not need to challenge these reactions immediately. Simply recognizing them provides valuable insight into what someone finds uncomfortable, meaningful, or emotionally sensitive. An equally important habit is avoiding the temptation to reveal too much about yourself. Many people feel uncomfortable when someone shares personal information, so they instinctively respond by sharing their own stories. While this can build connection, it can also shift attention away from learning about the other person. Instead of immediately matching every story with one of your own, encourage them to continue. Simple responses like, "That's interesting, tell me more," or "What happened after that?" keep the conversation centered on them. The more they speak, the more complete your understanding becomes. Body language often confirms what words attempt to hide. A confident statement delivered with hesitation, crossed arms, or forced smiles may indicate uncertainty. Someone claiming not to care while repeatedly returning to the same subject usually cares far more than they admit. Observe whether facial expressions match spoken words. Notice changes in posture, breathing, eye contact, and voice. Genuine emotions often appear for brief moments before people regain control of their expressions. These small inconsistencies provide valuable information because the body frequently communicates what the mouth tries to conceal. Patience remains your greatest advantage throughout this process. There is no need to rush toward conclusions after a single conversation. Human behavior reveals itself gradually. Every interaction adds another layer of understanding. Over time, the patterns become impossible to ignore. You begin recognizing what motivates people, what they fear losing, what excites them, what threatens them, and what silently influences nearly every decision they make. The more accurately you understand someone, the less you need to guess their next move, because they have already shown you who they are through countless small moments they believed no one was paying attention to rule for. Become difficult to predict. One of the greatest mistakes people make is becoming completely predictable. They develop routines that never change, emotional reactions that always follow the same pattern, and responses that others can anticipate with remarkable accuracy. At first, predictability feels comfortable because it creates stability, but it also makes you easy to understand, easy to influence, and easy to control. The moment people believe they have figured you out, they stop paying close attention. They begin assuming they know exactly what you will say, how you will react, and what decision you will make next. When someone can accurately predict your behavior, they can often shape it without you even realizing it. Human beings constantly search for patterns because the brain is designed to conserve energy. Instead of analyzing every new situation from the beginning, it creates shortcuts based on past experiences. If someone has seen you become angry every time you're criticized, they expect anger the next time as well. If they know you always answer messages immediately, they begin expecting instant availability. If you consistently seek approval before making decisions, they learn that validation influences your choices. These repeated behaviors become mental scripts that others unconsciously rely on. Breaking those scripts forces people to pay attention again because their expectations no longer match reality. Being difficult to predict does not mean acting randomly or behaving inconsistently. Random behavior creates confusion, not respect. Strategic unpredictability means remaining independent enough that your actions are guided by your principles instead of other people's expectations. It means responding according to the situation rather than according to habit. When your decisions are based on careful thought instead of automatic reactions, people find it much harder to anticipate your next move. Consider how most individuals react when someone insults them. The expected response is immediate defensiveness or retaliation. Voices become louder, emotions rise, and the conflict escalates. Now imagine responding with complete composure. Instead of arguing, you calmly ask the other person to explain their point. Suddenly, the conversation changes. The person who expected an emotional reaction now has to think instead of simply following the script they imagined. Their confidence often decreases because the situation is no longer unfolding the way they predicted. The same principle applies to praise. Many people become overly excited when they receive compliments. Their confidence temporarily depends on external approval. If someone learns that compliments easily influence you, they may begin using praise to guide your behavior. Remaining grounded during both criticism and praise demonstrates emotional independence. You appreciate positive feedback without becoming dependent on it, and you acknowledge criticism without allowing it to define your self-worth. This balance makes your behavior far less predictable because it is no longer controlled by emotional triggers. Another way to remain difficult to predict is by resisting the urge to explain every decision you make. Modern culture encourages constant sharing. People feel pressured to announce every goal, every opinion, every achievement, and every future plan. The more information you constantly provide, the easier it becomes for others to understand your thinking. Privacy, when practiced wisely, creates space for independent action. You do not need to reveal every strategy before putting it into motion. Sometimes allowing your results to speak before your intentions creates far greater impact than endless explanations ever could. People also struggle to predict those who are comfortable changing their minds when new information appears. Many individuals become trapped by their previous statements because they fear appearing inconsistent. They continue defending weak positions simply because they publicly committed to them. True confidence allows flexibility. If better evidence appears, adjust your thinking. If circumstances change your approach. Others may expect you to stubbornly continue down the same path, but thoughtful adaptation often becomes your greatest advantage. Predictability based on pride limits growth, while adaptability based on wisdom creates strength. Unpredictability is also reflected in your daily habits. If every decision you make is driven by comfort, people quickly recognize your limits. They know where you will go, what you will choose, and how far you are willing to push yourself. Occasionally stepping outside familiar routines develops resilience while making your behavior less obvious. Learn new skills without announcing them. Explore different perspectives instead of remaining trapped in familiar thinking. Expand your abilities quietly rather than seeking recognition for every improvement. Growth itself becomes unpredictable because people only see the results long after the work has already been completed. Another important aspect is learning to control your timing. Most people react immediately. They answer messages as soon as they arrive, respond to criticism the moment they hear it, and make important decisions under emotional pressure. Deliberate timing disrupts expectations. Taking time to think before responding often produces better decisions while preventing others from influencing your emotional state. A thoughtful pause communicates self-control because it shows that your actions are chosen rather than automatic. Perhaps the greatest source of strategic unpredictability is maintaining a clear sense of identity that does not depend on the opinions of others. People who constantly seek acceptance become easy to predict because they adjust their behavior to gain approval. They say what others want to hear, agree to avoid conflict, and follow expectations even when those expectations contradict their own values. Someone who acts according to carefully chosen principles instead of social pressure becomes much harder to manipulate because their decisions come from internal conviction rather than external influence. Their behavior remains consistent with their values, but unpredictable to anyone attempting to control them through expectation, emotion, or approval. Rule 5. Win the mind before the moment. Most people spend their lives reacting to events after they happen. They solve problems only when those problems become impossible to ignore. They prepare for conversations only moments before they begin. They think about consequences only after their decisions have already produced them. This reactive way of living keeps people trapped in an endless cycle of responding to circumstances instead of shaping them. The individuals who consistently stay ahead are different because they train themselves to think beyond the present moment. They understand that every action creates a chain of future reactions, and by learning to anticipate those reactions, they gain an advantage long before anyone else realizes the game has begun. Every interaction is like a move in a strategic game. The average person focuses only on the immediate result. They ask themselves, how do I win this argument? Or how do I get what I want today? A strategic thinker asks a very different question. What happens after this? That single question changes everything. Winning an argument may damage a valuable relationship. Making a quick profit may destroy long-term trust. Chasing immediate satisfaction may close doors that could have led to far greater opportunities. Looking beyond the first outcome allows you to make decisions that continue working in your favor long after everyone else has moved on. This kind of thinking requires patience because the human mind naturally seeks immediate rewards. We enjoy instant success, quick recognition, and fast results. Unfortunately, the easiest rewards often carry hidden costs. Someone may impress people by speaking confidently today, but if their knowledge is shallow, that confidence will eventually be exposed. Another person may remain quiet, continue learning, and gradually build genuine expertise. At first, they receive little attention, but over time their credibility becomes impossible to ignore. Strategic thinking often sacrifices temporary recognition in exchange for lasting influence. Planning ahead also means preparing for situations before they occur. Most people wait until they are under pressure before deciding how to respond. By then, emotions have already taken control. Imagine entering an important meeting without considering possible objections. Every unexpected question catches you off guard. Now, imagine entering that same meeting after mentally rehearsing different scenarios. You have already considered the difficult questions. You have already prepared thoughtful responses. Pressure feels smaller because your mind has visited the situation before your body ever arrives. Preparation transforms uncertainty into confidence. Another powerful habit is learning to identify patterns instead of isolated events. One disagreement may simply be a misunderstanding. Several similar disagreements may reveal a deeper issue. A single mistake might be accidental. The same mistake repeated over and over becomes predictable. Strategic thinkers rarely judge situations based on one emotional moment. They step back and examine the larger picture. They ask what patterns are developing, what habits are forming, and what consequences those habits will eventually create. This broader perspective helps them recognize opportunities and dangers long before they become obvious to everyone else. Thinking several steps ahead also requires understanding human nature. People often believe they are unpredictable, but most follow consistent emotional patterns. They seek comfort, avoid embarrassment, protect their identity, and pursue what they believe will benefit them. When you understand these basic tendencies, you become better at anticipating decisions before they are made. You begin asking yourself not only what people are saying, but what they are likely to do next based on their values, fears, ambitions, and previous behavior. This allows you to prepare instead of merely reacting. Your own decisions deserve the same level of analysis. Before making an important choice, imagine its consequences 6 months from now instead of 6 minutes from now. Ask yourself how today's decision affects your reputation, your relationships, your opportunities, and your future. Freedom. Many poor decisions appear attractive because they solve immediate discomfort. Many excellent decisions feel difficult because their rewards arrive later. Strategic thinking means becoming comfortable with temporary discomfort when it serves a greater purpose. Discipline is what allows long-term thinking to overcome short-term emotion. Without discipline, every impulse feels urgent. Every distraction appears important. Every criticism demands an immediate response. When you develop discipline, you begin choosing your actions based on your goals instead of your feelings. This creates consistency, and consistency builds trust in yourself. Over time, your decisions become calmer, your judgment becomes sharper, and your confidence grows because you repeatedly prove that you can think beyond the present moment. One of the greatest advantages of staying several steps ahead is that it reduces unnecessary surprises. Challenges still appear, but they rarely catch you completely unprepared because you have already considered multiple possibilities. Instead of panicking, you adapt. Instead of freezing, you act. Instead of reacting emotionally, you respond with clarity because your mind has been trained to explore possibilities before circumstances force them upon you. This quiet preparations often appears to others as natural intelligence, when in reality it is the result of deliberate practice and consistent observation. The people who leave the strongest mark on the world are rarely those with the fastest reactions. They are the ones with the clearest vision. They understand that today's choices become tomorrow's reality, and they refuse to let temporary emotions dictate permanent outcomes. While others chase immediate victories, they build lasting advantages. While others focus on the next move, they focus on the entire journey. That is why they remain calm under pressure, confident in uncertainty, and prepared for challenges that others never saw coming. Remember, true dominance is never about overpowering people. It is about mastering yourself, understanding human behavior, and consistently thinking beyond the obvious. When you observe carefully, control your emotions, encourage others to reveal themselves, remain difficult to predict, and always stay several steps ahead, you stop becoming a participant in the game and begin becoming the person who quietly shapes its direction. And once you develop that mindset, you will discover that the greatest advantage was never strength, luck, or talent. It was the ability to think differently while everyone else was busy reacting.